once again from Tiny Shiny and 2 Tryhard Ray on our Overwatch NECC broadcast. If you can already believe it, we are in week 5 of our regular season, and we're starting to see where these teams are planning out, how the results have been going, and we're very excited to head into our next 2 matches that we have going on tonight.
We are taking a sojourn into D2 for our match number 1 against 2 very talented and well-known teams in this division. We have the University of Delaware's varsity squad going up against Arcadia University. Arcadia is extremely talented. They're undefeated on the season so far, and Delaware is known for being a big time, especially in like EGF. They come to NECC, they're in Division 2. They faced a couple of tough losses against some of the more talented teams like Drexel. Can they find a way to get the dub against Arcadia, who's undefeated?
And once we get to look at these matchups, we'll have our rosters in play. And this is interesting for both you and I, Ray, because we've had some experience, like just within the past couple of seasons, years even, with the University of Delaware roster. I specifically remember seeing Syrup on that support, just being an insane player for this team. They've really continued to step it up and build as a squad, whereas Arcadia, a name we've heard slightly less around the block, but clearly have been cooking something correctly, because you're undefeated on the season and one of the very few teams to still hold that title. Delaware, a strong roster that both you and I know is one that should never be underestimated, right?
Yeah, I feel like the only thing you could say is Delaware has definitely had the tougher strength of schedule. So far, Drexel is a very talented team in Division 2, and Arcadia hasn't had to go up against some of the better teams in D2 yet, but they've still dominated in their victories, so they're definitely the favorites coming in. The big question is, how much has Delaware learned from those losses, especially against some of those top-tier teams that gave them a nice key to figuring out how they're going to beat Arcadia tonight?
Mm-hmm. And this is interesting, too, because Arcadia are on the line of perfection, right? They haven't dropped a map, let alone a series. Like, this is a team that has not really faced much adversity so far. And this will be a good point, especially now that we're a good chunk of the way through the season in Division 2, to see how close some of these squads actually are. It doesn't seem that Arcadia has faced a significant challenge thus far. And Delaware Blue Hens, at least from what we have seen in the past from this team, is going to push those limits and show us what Arcadia has done so well to get themselves to this undefeated point. It is all going to start, though, not in our favorite Lijiang Tower. We're going to take a bit of a trip over to the snowy mountains of Nepal.
I feel like in our NEC broadcast, plus what I see, when I'm watching when Bullskunk and Soav are on the cast, Nepal's been a very popular first map pick in recent memory. They even had it last week with the BSC game versus Fisher. I think we had it in our Briarcliff and Redbirds Academy. It's been seen very often. I think it's a good test for what these teams can do. We all know that we're going to see brawl in some of those like more close quartery maps, like your village and your sanctuary, for example. But when we get to Sanctum with the whole, that's where you can start to see teams make some adjustments, and this is where we can start seeing Pharahs come out. You might switch up the tank a little bit, but at the end of the day, given that it's a brawl map and we know the most powerful brawl tank in the game right now, it's like she who not be named at this point. We think we know who we're going to see.
Some good old-fashioned battle cattle, or the Orisa if you really want to be not fun, but I like saying battle cattle. It's pretty chill. This is just what you should expect when you're fighting on control, especially this map in particular. You're gonna get close quarters in each other's face. I won't say a Winston dive is out of the question so far, Ray. Winston is still in a pretty good spot, can hold his own against an Orisa. A Reinhardt, on the other hand, Ray, that's when we haven't seen a whole lot of Ray lately, but I can tell you, with those recent buffs to the shield, Racer being on this hero can be pretty hard to take down.
I don't want to say anything for sure. I've fallen for the bait one too many times as a caster, but for Delaware, I like what they're doing with the Orisa, especially with the Juno Brig. We've seen that be the most popular support combo, and Carter and Syrup on this DPS line are the ones to be watching out for. Their DPS line is absolutely incredible, and if Carter, say, plays the Mei, he's going to go to the Genji on this case, but he's very talented.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna have no Mei on this one. Probably expecting an Orisa on the other side. Mei doesn't get a whole bunch of value against that hero just because of the ways to negate the freeze, but it is that Reinhardt that will be locked. Arcadia are going for a good old-fashioned TP brawl. Pip on the Symmetra is gonna be essentially Racer's taxi to get in and out of these fights. Maybe some sneaky pins to see, but for now, Arcadia are sitting pretty on the point, but not too pretty. It's Syrup, 2 clean shots to Arioga's dome. It'll be a quick reset, at least, for Delaware Varsity. Get some cooldowns up, but you can't have your Juno player go off the map. I believe that was Finlay. Works around to the backline with a TP. That's another kill onto Syrup. A very scrappy beginning. Arcadia clearly had a plan going into this. They just didn't account for the Syrup factor, taking multiple players down with them.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing your best if you're savings trying to make this happen, and you do get the brig as picks are still going back and forth. It's not clear who's going to win this fight yet, as Arcadia has come screaming back and they flip the point.
This is gonna be a game. This is gonna be a game. Let me tell you. I mean, even Pip just swapping to that Genji for the cleanup last second has really worked out for Arcadia.
Yeah, and I think really what that came down to is them losing their Juno early in that fight for Delaware. That takes a lot of healing off the board. As you mentioned, that's like the one thing you couldn't let happen. And the fact that Carter's playing Genji already forced Pip to have to go over to the Genji to match it. And the Sim just wasn't getting enough value because you're allowing Syrup to just free fire and find picks.
Yeah, Syrup is going to be one of the biggest issues that Arcadia are going to face. Incredibly talented hit scan player from what we've seen so far. Like, even now, look at the protection. Just Pip is trying to get something done. Just put some sort of pressure on this hit scan. Hasn't gotten anywhere as an amplification matrix on point, but not a single sight of a Delaware player on the high ground. They all found their hiding spot, though. Pip dove into the little hole that every blue hen was hiding in, and that'll be enough to kind of zone them out. I like this from Arcadia. They're not really overstepping themselves, allowing Pip just to go bounce around, do whatever he feels that he needs to, while the rest of the team anchors on the point. Now Carter, though, wants to get a word in the action, looking for the bat, but no! They'll be saving Joe. That takes the Dragon Blade down, and Arcadia are looking to maintain control here, but you have to fight against both the Sarissa and a rallying Brig. Jay popped that last second. That's enough to support the point, and Syrup getting that final blow should do some good.
Very expensive fights for both sides, as Carter's now going to go over to the Mei. And I talked about if he played the Mei, he's a fantastic Mei, Tiny. But not only are you good at Mei, but you're going against a Reinhardt, where isolation against a tank like Reinhardt is absolutely pivotal, because it takes the value out of the immortality field from the Baptiste if you get a good wall.
Oh, the Terra Surgeon Bob combo, an interesting one to say the least, but this Pip Dragon Blade just kind of walks out, takes a couple slashes at the end, just doesn't get the value you'd expect out of that type of ultimate. Instead, the robot butler of Delaware's varsity squad that actually is the first one in the kill feed for this fight. A very scrappy one, but it's all Syrup. The final blows that he's getting all by himself has to be well more than what the entire team has combined for the rest of them. Saving Joe another amplification matrix very quickly, building these up with the amount of healing he's had to pump into the Reinhardt. Immortality field out. Racer racing against time, racing against his health bar to stay alive. There's only so much Saving Joe can do, and Delaware Varsity can go ahead and about even up this percentage.
See, look at that wall from Carter in that fight. The immortality field was completely blocked off, and for the side of Racer, they were forced to use their charge to get away. As we're going to see now the Orisa being matched, as the support line for Arcadia is going to swap over to the Brig Juno. One final fight territory is the unfortunate thing, and Delaware is going to have the orbital array tank. This is going to be a tough fight for Arcadia to win.
You gotta think it's too little, too late for these swaps, and I don't envy Pip here, having to play a Pharah against a Syrup who really doesn't seem to have missed many shots here. You don't have that orbital array working for you, one of the best ultimates in the game right now, but Pip gets into the backline and grabs Syrup. This simply should not be happening. It's like Pip heard me talking, knew that was going to be the problem, went for it instead, but you don't have any friends to back you up. It's quite literally Pip against the world here, as the rest of Delaware Varsity comes roaring back to the point.
Yeah, you get the point flip, but it's not going to be for that long, as the touches have to come in immediately and do come in.
Yeah, they'll have the last touch, but that Mei wall is going to go ahead and seal the deal for Delaware Varsity. You mentioned Carter swapping over to that hero, and I gotta say, the comp stability of Delaware Varsity really helped them throughout this first round.
The Mei just provides a lot, especially against the Reinhardt, being able to slow him down, being able to wall him off. Even against the Orisa in general, it's still a great tool to have, because if you isolate the Orisa, we talked about the value of getting rid of the Immortality Field for the Reinhardt. Well, when you're playing Orisa, you're not playing a Baptiste with it, so you don't have to wear Immortality Field. But what that wall does is it gets out the Orisa cooldowns, that Javelin spin, that Fortify. So then once those cooldowns are out, you can focus down Racer that much easier.
Racer just was not having a good time on the Reinhardt. Like, I like what Arcadia were trying to do. It wasn't the move. However, they're gonna do it again here. Untanked him, Ray.
They are, and Delaware is gonna make an interesting adaptation. They're gonna have Carter stay on the Sim, and they're gonna have Jay go over to the Ana. So Arcadia's gonna have to be very weary of these nades.
They don't have a choice. You have Juno, Lucio healing. You straight up are not going to get much heals. You need to go fast and fast. Like, that is it. You're either all in or you're all dead. That's kind of what you're playing off of here, especially with Delaware Varsity's strong poke. They're already forced back into that room with the Mega Pack. This teleporter is so smart. Bounce Racer, though, does tank a Bio Nade to the face, has plenty of health. They go live on through it. The classic time of Sancta where you just don't see any limbs come in, but it's Racer deep into the back lines, takes Carter for a sweet ride off the map at the cost of their own life, and even trade so far, but you gotta say, not having a tank here was plenty of space for Ideal unless they're dealt with now.
Yeah, they did a great job between the Lucio and the Juno of keeping Pip alive in order for them to get that beam charge up to erase Ideal, because if the healing didn't come in, Pip would have been dead and things would have looked rough with Delaware getting spawners come back. Carter immediately going to go over to the main. I think that's going to be a smart swap here. It's interesting that both these teams are coming out on the Sim. Not usually a typical pick you see, but Delaware has been quick to abandon it.
No, but here's the nice thing. You don't have a ton of, like, support here, right? So Saving Joe has built up this orbital ray incredibly quickly throughout that fight, just pumping it into Racer, who, mind you, that's another TP into the backline. Pip has literally been carrying Arcadia with these setups so far. Racer and Finlay know exactly what to do with them.
Yeah, the TPs are coming through very strong, and that's how you have to play this if you're the side of Arcadia, because the Sim's going to have not as much value once things start breaking out and getting into these long fights, because the Sim's going to be the #1 target. You can't allow the Sim to live the longest out of everyone on this team.
Look at this, too. Not only is this teleporter set up, you have both flanks. Eventually, Delaware are able to break it, but guess what? It's right back, but this one's a bait. They have 4 ults to walk in with, not a blink of fear. In the eyes of the Blue Hens, Arcadia are sent reeling backwards, but they lose Carter on the way out. They were so close to getting all that elimination, yet it's them who lose the Mei on the defense.
As it's going to come down to one final fight for both teams, as Delaware has a lot in their ult bank to work with, but Arcadia has the responses available. So Delaware's going to have to get aggressive, and they have to find an opening pick. They've been the ones picked.
Oh! They were going for the Earth Shatter, but Razor was denied on 2 fronts. Tries to take the horse off the map, but Ideal shall live on. Delaware Varsity, they were cutting that close. Had to dump a ton of tools into it. Well, managed to go ahead and withdraw at the end of the day.
I mean, was it really a lot of tools, Tiny? They used Terra Surge and they used Orbital Ray, and Arcadia used Orbital Ray and Terra Surge. Like, you ended out in an even trade there, so you still have Nano and Blizzard for this next fight to match the Sound Barrier and Overclock coming in. So, all things considered, that was a great fight for Delaware.
I just saw a lot of visual effects. I'm like, ooh, that's gotta be a lot of ultimates. Nope, really only just 4. That's Overwatch for you, folks. Finlay, though, going for another boop. Yeah, they'll stay on their feet for now. Eruda on another flank here. Gets Jay caught out. That's a second one to Mako. The support line of Delaware Varsity is no more. Arcadia just need one more flip here. Delaware Varsity, they're chucking the Blizzard as a last-ditch effort. They're in the back line. It's the DPS and the tanks, but they have no health. Their supports are dead. Ideal really can't move anywhere. It's onto the DPS to keep stalling it out, and Syrup does just that.
Very well played by the entirety of Delaware. The thing is, however, is every ult was used. Jay has now swapped over to the Kiriko for Delaware. No ults available. Arcadia can just use this beat aggressively, and even this Photon Barrier they're going to be coming up on. So Arcadia goes back into the driver's seat. They just got to use these ults smartly, and this fight will be theirs.
The Sound Barrier unmatched, and not having a Mei is going to be brutal. That's another one for Finlay. So aggressive on this Lucio, and it's about to get even quicker here. Hunting for Jay. Gets that one. Uh-oh. Now it's Mako locked in his sights, and there's a third for the Lucio player. You'll love to see these bloodthirsty supports pop off in the ways that they do, and it'll send Arcadia straight to round 3.
And for a team that likes to play the sim, Tiny, we're probably about to go to the map that favors the sim the most, which is Village, because you can just, you know, throw your TP, your turrets all over that just closed in point, and sim can just get a lot going because of how close quarters the map is in general. So Arcadia being able to take this map puts themselves in a great spot to try and take the first map, but Delaware still has looked good at times, and May is also very good on this Village map, just close quarters. It's a lot harder, not as many sight lines for healers, so walls can be that much more devastating when you isolate. So it's going to be a big question what happens here, as Delaware's now the one on the Reinhardts.
Syrup, don't do it to on the sim. Bastion Delaware's like, all right, Arcadia, you want to play? Cracks their knuckles. Let me give you a taste of your own medicine. But little they know, Arcadia are having nothing to do with the Reinhardt. It's instead Syrup having to withstand several rockets chucked in from Pip. There's not a real answer to that Pharah, and you can see how much Delaware's comp is struggling as a result. Like, literally, if Arcadia rolled on anything else, I think they get steamrolled.
I agree for sure. The Pharah came through strong for Pip, which I think they were expecting the sim to go right back at them, as Carter's going to go over to the Tracer and Syrup's going to go over to the Ashe. And Ideal, yeah, so they're going back to what they are, except Carter's going to play the Tracer instead of like a Mei Genji. What do you think is going to be smart? You can use a Tracer to go after Eruda on the Sojourn, and then you have Syrup who can attack Pip in the sky. This is going to make Pip's job that much harder.
Yeah, Pip, though, isn't having too much struggle so far. It's Eruda. Look how far back that he's standing right now. There's just not a chance for Delaware to poke their eyes out of this small choke without getting beaten down by this barrage of just pellets from both BPS.
Eruda is finding picks time and time again to open up these fights, and has been a big reason for Arcadia to be up. So they're going to need to continue to see that. That's why I think it's going to be that important for Carter to try and put pressure on them.
Yeah, but the hardest part is Delaware can't really move up. If you're a Tracer, you don't want to be walking into 4 players completely by yourself. You can try to contest this point and keep Pip occupied. That buys the team a little bit more time just to get through these choke points. But that's the orbital ray coming out of Delaware. Arcadia will run for the hills, not up to engage. That means Saving Joe will have theirs for a future fight, and you're going to need it after Finlay hits the deck here. Zaruda's time to shine. That's the overclock. Grabs one. That's a second, maybe a third for the Sojourn player. Woo! The DPS players so far are impressive on both sides. I'm just loving the fireworks going off.
I mean, you do get a nice steal of a good, possibly 10% by the time this flips. So if you're Delaware, that at least make things not as bad. Because if they had control of the point the whole time, you'd be having to rush and get ready for final fight territory. But for the side of Arcadia, they did use a lot in that fight, but it was necessary. You're in a position where you're going to have Window and Terra Surge to work with. Delaware is coming up on a lot of key ultimates because they only use the Ray in that fight.
This is big, but there's Eruda again. Like, first it was Syrup, and then it was Pip, and now it's Eruda, just living uncontested on this high ground. Delaware have yet to come up with an answer for this player, and I'm starting to get a really good idea of how Arcadia have managed to stay undefeated so far. They're approaching final fight territory, and there was not a single breath of life to be seen out of the Blue Hens, other than the Lucio will be sent to an early death. Arcadia maintaining their perfection so far with a 1-0 lead.
Eruda and Pip have definitely been the highlights for Arcadia and have been the big reasons why things have been going so well. Eruda's ability to just pull picks out of thin air quickly in these opening fights with that Sojourn has been the catalyst for Arcadia to come back, because map number 1, they were playing the Ashe and they were kind of getting a little bit diffed, as we saw here, by Syrup. So going over the Sojourn and really finding a lot of value was the key difference in Arcadia coming back.
Yeah, Arcadia really just looked to their DPS players to put up some damage. But also, how about Finlay? Finlay on this Lucio, a hero that is slowly starting to come back into relevance, but Juno has just often been the better pick. You play them together because Finlay is so dang good at what he does. Several incredible plays, chasing down kills, and of course, grabbing 3 of his own at the tail end here. It just seems that Arcadia have a very good understanding of how they want to play with each other, with this composition, because they're confident in their own mechanics.
Couldn't agree more. And then they use the teleporter, especially on Sanctum, to very good use.
Oh, yeah.
Teleporting between the 2 different sides with their Reinhardt, and it worked to their advantage extremely well. So their communication, just based on that, we know it's top tier, because to play sim comps with that with TPs, your team has to be on the same wavelength and same page in order for those to work at the highest levels that they did.
And I think it felt at some points too that Delaware did put up a fight, but it also it seemed like it was syrup against the world at points. And it's not like the rest of Delaware wasn't doing anything. You couldn't walk anywhere. Syrup was getting the picks here and there, but the tank was getting stuffed by a Symmetra. You couldn't find a way to move through these chokes. You tried to put Carter on the Tracer to draw attention, but the rest of the team couldn't push up with it as a result, and it seemed that slight bit of disconnect there, Arcadia found that as a weakness of the Blue Hens and really took advantage of it to kind of close out that map.
We're going to have to see if the Blue Hens can come up with some sort of counter as we head into map 2, which if any of you guys haven't been tuned into NECC, which I hope you have been, but if you haven't, map number 2, the team who lost gets to pick hybrid or escort. We now know it is escort. Then the team who won gets to ban one of those maps, and then the team who lost gets to pick. So we know we're going to escort next. The big question is, what bans and picks do we get? I'm very excited. These escort maps, especially with the changes we've gotten, they were basically 2 escort maps. I mean, they were done to Havana, it was done to Dorado, it was done to Circuit Royale. It's very exciting.
Yes, well the good news is, Ray, we don't really have to speculate too much on what's happening because that map pick actually has already been confirmed. Shout out to these teams for just like whipping through the process. They know exactly what map they want to go to. And hey, good for you, Blue Hens, because this is not a pick that I was fully expecting to see. We go from a very like brawly, fist-to-fist kind of map to the most dive map in the entirety of Overwatch here, with the exception of Dorado, that's been reworked. So that's a whole nother story. What I'm thinking here is you want to get Syrup in a position to succeed. You want to make sure that you can really start to shut down Aruda when it comes to what he's been able to accomplish on the hit scan, and overall change the pace of how the game has been played so far, since clearly control was not your jam.
I mean, that's an interesting point. Is it the most? It probably is. Like,
probably.
When I think of dive, I do think of this map. I think of Dorado, and I also think of Numbani. So, those are like the main 3 maps I think of when I think. Huh?
That's a Sigma map. Nowadays, used to be a dive map. Now we need someone to pick Numbani. If this goes map 5, you guys are picking Numbani. We need to settle this. I'm just saying, but
I'm just saying every memory I have from like Overwatch League and contenders, I'm just thinking of high tier Winston play. Or like Winston Diva kind of compositions. I don't necessarily think of Sigma. When I think of Sigma, I think of 2CP double shield scumbag comps that we all hated.
What? I love Space Grandpa. Oh my gosh, how could you say that?
I loved it too, but it's scummy.
Okay, well...
I played the Orisa in that comp, though.
See, that's worse! That's literally worse! Okay, you know what? We'll just agree to disagree, you know? We don't get double shield anytime
It's not
soon.
worse. I only played the Orisa because my other tank couldn't play Orisa, okay?
Well, there's only one tank in Overwatch 2, just
hey,
like...
we're getting some experiments coming soon.
We'll get those experiments. In this game, though, one tank, and only one tank. Unless you sub somebody in, which doesn't seem like that has happened on either side. The roster's looking identical to what we saw in map number 1. I want to say Delaware's cooking. They clearly are more confident in their ability to dive and out these rotations in that manner, because I think that was their biggest struggle at the end of the day, Ray, is they kept getting caught out in their own rotations, or they just straight up couldn't make them happen because Arcadia took too much initiative and the Blue Hens weren't prepared to react. So you change that style, that pace of gameplay to match one that is faster, right? You have bit more mobility. You don't have to worry as much about someone just getting pancaked into the ground. So we'll have to see what Delaware Varsity are cooking here, because I gotta say, Arcadia, I'm gonna guess are pretty comfortable on this one too.
So the interesting looking at these compositions, Tiny, is this time around, Hip is going on to like the hit scan. Last map it was Aruda who played the Ashe and the Sojourn. Aruda goes over to the Tracer and Pip plays the Ashe. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes and lines up. For the side of Delaware, I mean, we know Carter's there just to teleport your Widow across to put them up in a good space, and Carter's likely going to go Tracer after that. So Carter versus Aruda on the Tracer battle.
Oh, Jay's already dead. Okay, you did the Sim TP thing, and Arcadia just flat out ambushed both the supports. Yeah, back to the spawns. Not a chance. That was like 5 seconds before there was a pick, Ray.
Whew. Arcadia just came out the guns. Aruda on the Tracer, just going on the flank and finding the Ana immediately is not what you needed for if you're Delaware. So you're going to have to be sneak, you know, like spy checking for that Tracer constantly. You cannot allow your support line to get obliterated that quickly.
It's that typical play where you TP your supports up to high ground to have better sight lines, but Arcadia read it so easily. You need something to go your way, and it's a trade between the Ashe and the Ana player. Don't see that a whole lot, but not having an Ana here is going to hurt a little bit worse, except for the fact that they have much closer spawn. So Arcadia just going to have to work with less damage, try to hold more of the space as Racer isn't letting Delaware take an inch.
You know, the trades do favor Delaware at this spot just because of how closer the spawns are. So it forces Arcadia to have to play a little bit more careful and not as up front as they would. And Carter finds Aruda, that's great.
This is big. Carter was very quiet back in map number 1, so seeing him come up in the kill feed a bit more positively for Delaware is a great change for them. So they'll manage to move this payload all the way through that underpass and start to hold Arcadia at the gates.
And this is the pressure that we were wanting to see from a team like Delaware. And they have a lot of ults piling online, but Arcadia has them online right this second, so they can look to get aggressive.
I want to go in, but if there's anyone that set the tone so far, it's been Arcadia, and Racer along with it does pop the Primal Rage. Please get out of the payload now! Okay, Racer, you are making me nervous here, buddy. Leaps back in the nick of time, and we'll keep this payload contested. There's plenty of tools for Delaware to work with, but they're going to want to use as few as possible, especially knowing that they have the advantage at this time. Racer just bunkered down on this payload, making something happen, and he just can't do anything other than watch his team crumble around him. Delaware Varsity leaped on towards the vulnerable underbelly of Arcadia. I'm going to make quick work of the first point, 4:13 on the clock.
As I would say, you know, at the beginning parts of the map, Aruda was going crazy on the Tracer, but ever since that opening gambit, Carter went absolutely insane on that Tracer, applying a lot of pressure and got the crucial pole spawn kill onto Finley before they were able to get up that rally. So that was a big time pick, and Delaware is now in a great position, and now they can look to use this nano however they want. Do they want to give it to their Winston? Do they want to give it to Carter to farm out to their pulse spawn? They have a lot of choices.
Well, choice number 1 is Pip's going to throw in a Bob on the high ground. Syrup incredibly low. Won't get caught by the dynamite, but just barely. Delaware Varsity, they're just having Carter pressure this payload. That's all Tracer does in this map, is you are just a glorified passenger princess on this cart. That nade, though, was nasty on the Finlay. Like, Delaware Varsity, there's such a difference in how confident they looked on that Orisa comp versus now on the dive.
I just gotta correct you there, Tiny. It's payload princess. Like
okay, well.
That's when you're the payload one, you're the payload princess. Like that's what I've always called it. But you know, Delaware is just moving at this point, and Jay has been the big reason. Tiny got that huge nano onto Ideal. Wow. Not only that, but as soon as the nano came in, hit a big anti-nade, got Finlay off the board. Finlay hasn't even been able to use their rally yet. Like that's how much just pressure Delaware's been putting onto them, and Manko almost has another rally to match Finlay's first.
Right, there was a single fight on that second point.
You don't see that every day.
That is unacceptable. Like, that is just Delaware setting an unmatchable pace. Racer wants to get aggressive and get in there. Arcadia needs something to go their way, and right now it's Pip getting set up on this high ground, having a little bit more leeway, and this is often an objective that we're going to start to see teams have to go back to the drawing board and rethink their approach.
And that was Saving Joe making the play. So the honors are coming through on both sides. Saving Joe got another big anti-nade and basically wrapped up the fight early. Carter has another pulse bomb. We saw what he did last time. Got the stick onto Finlay. And I feel like I've been seeing that as a big theme, is the Tracers going after the Briggs. But
oh, yeah.
In my most recent memory, is they've been successful in NECC. Can they find it again?
Oh, the move up to the high ground. There's the stick onto the brig, but it's on his shield and the nano boost too. Yeah, Finlay's not dying. Absolutely not. That was a big play. Delaware Varsity knew what they needed to do, and you literally have 4 ultimates just to chuck at this fight and just hope that it goes well. Everyone does their own part, and this payload's rounded the final corner. Arcadia are staggered. They're split. They're not going to get a full recontest off of this, let alone have any realistic tools to turn this fight. Jay still has a nano boost. Syrup, though, going down. That's a little bit of an opportunity Arcadia can work with. They just need to keep themselves alive long enough. This nano from Ideal is going to make that incredibly difficult, though. Delaware are just way too far ahead. They snowballed their way through the entirety of Gibraltar Way in one of the fastest times with the least amount of combat I think I've seen in a minute.
The fact that they were able to bank their nano for that final engage was the key, and that's the thing. The Ana plays from both teams. For Arcadia, it was the thing, like, that could have been even faster if Saving Joe didn't get that big anti-nade on 3rd point to at least stifle them for a single fight. But for the side of Delaware, Jay has just been absolutely dominant this entire map. And that's what I like to see. Like, when we're in these dive competitions, we're like, oh, the Tracer play. Oh, like, we like to fawn over that kind of stuff. No, the Anas are coming through big time.
This is always such an Ana map. Like, it's the one time that the grandma's kind of taken out of the shadows. You're no longer this punching bag for the enemy team. It's like, hey guys, look what I got. It pulls out the arm of like an MLB player and just hits these picture-perfect nades. And that's where we really saw Jay step it up in this map in particular. Of course, the entire pacing of Delaware Varsity looked incredible. Small plays like that are what start the sort of push that Delaware have been going for so far and have set quite a mark for Arcadia to have to hit.
So you know the meme where it's like, hold my beer?
Yeah.
I feel like for like the grandma for Ana, she's like, it's just grandma just like, hold my cane. It's like, and then they came in and absolutely dominated. Like it's awesome. As we see no changes from any of the teams really. Syrup is going to go over to the Ashe defensively, which that tends to be more standard. Ashe has a lot more damage, has the ability to deter dives like this with the coach gun. So offensively, Sojourn makes sense. Defensively, the Ashe makes more sense.
Oh, but that's another nade. Oh, Saving Joe. That was a nasty one on the 3 players of Delaware, Ruda and Pip, cleaning up the DPS line. And on the other end here, and this payload just kind of gonna keep moving. And I'm assuming Arcadia will go for any staggers they can, but are just opting to put as many players they can on the payload and let Delaware come to them instead, which might be a mistake because Finlay ends up getting caught out in the rotation back because they never cleared the high ground.
I was gonna say the Pip does find 2 on the Echo, but it's been traded out. It's a 3v3 fight.
And that was another nade that Saving Joe has hit. Pip and Aruda have been all over the plays that their flex support has been setting up for them. I mean, Arcadia are certainly making this look scrappy, but one way that it's in their favor. At the end of the day, get the result that you want. This payload's round in that final corner, and does Delaware gonna have a good touch here?
They should.
Payload? Oh, if they move the payload.
Touch the cart!
Hello? Payload pushers? Anybody home? Anybody home? Oh, no, they just wanted to get Mako. There's the payload. Uh-oh, the Ideal's back. Hopefully you clean this up, Arcadia. That was an interesting turn of events. That looked like a free payload push. Not really gonna lie to you on that, and Arcadia might have to use a bit more than they wanted to clean up this fight, including that nano boost. Would have liked to have it for a second point, but seeing how many staggers you can get here might as well be worth it in the end, as Aruda has had enough, brought out the broom, and Arcadia move forwards.
Both teams' attacks have been nice, clean, calculated, and led by big nades from their Ana. Saving Joe has looked great, but as you mentioned, that nano is definitely something you would have wished you could have kept on your plate. Because Delaware was smart. They just realized they're in a losing fight, and they really didn't commit anything. So you're going to be down on ult in the ult economy. Aruda, Pulse Bomb, can they find the Brig like Carter was able to on this point B and really open things up?
They're gonna try, but I can't. It's just these nades. Like, Saving Joe is getting way too much value for Arcadia. Like, where was this from Jay? Jay did this exact same thing on Delaware's own attack, but he's been utterly silenced ever since they swapped sides. Nano was on to steer up his last attacker, but guess what? It's Saving Joe again with another bio, and there's nothing that Delaware can realistically do about it. They'll pop the rally as some sort of response and try Tracer 1v1. A lot of melees going through. The pulse bomb's a bit wide, and Arcadia looking clean to just walk this payload right on in. And I thought Delaware's pace was impressive. Arcadia are just about to match it. If they manage to pull out this fight, Syrup still commits the Bob, hoping Ideal can have a little bit more stall time here. Arcadia could care less. They literally just went off after the squishy characters here to make something happen. It does buy Delaware more time to set up like a sustainable stall in a way without a real win condition here, especially losing out on Carter. Ideal Warrior just has to be pumped full of health. Taking out Racer would be big, but at least it's enough to send Arcadia backwards.
Exactly. Ideal did a great job using that primal, and even the late Bob kept contests on the cart, allowed Ideal Warrior to apply pressure without having to touch the cart, and allowed them to buy time for the team to come back, put themselves in a great spot, and there's the opening with Jay.
Yeah, Jay finally got that pick that they wanted to get, and we know how good the auto's been in the past. Unfortunately, Saving Joe, you've been cool and all. You don't really stand a chance against a full health Ideal. Delaware Varsity slowly regaining that momentum that we saw them carry through the first attack.
Delaware was forced to use the nano there, so Saving Joe's going to have that big playability to set things up for this next attack. So you put advantage in their favor. And really, for Arcadia, it's just making sure you put yourselves in a great spot to dive. You just got to find a good opening and a spot to dive from.
The angles are much harder to get on the attack. This is why this objective tends to stump a lot of teams, but not if you're working as one. Pip, especially with the nano boost, makes it so easy to just walk right into these points, do these insane amounts of burst damage. So a little bit of a tickling down from Racer is enough to secure the objective. As now, Arcadia moving towards this third point and have quite the time bank to put.
It's not, I mean, depending on how this third point goes, we could be looking at similar time banks. Syrup and Delaware in general has a stronghold on the ult economy right now because of the way that fight turned out for Arcadia. They use both of their ults. All they're going to really have is a rally, maybe a pulse bomb, but Syrup can get space with this high noon. We're coming up on both rally and primal for Delaware, so they just got to make sure they use these ults smartly. You can't use all three in this fight.
Well, hopefully you don't need to, especially since Racer is already dead. Finlay has an point in the rally in the back corner. I'm not a huge fan of investing ults, especially when you don't have a tank. You're just trying to sustain long enough until the tank comes back. Not going to happen 9 times out of 10 like we just saw, and just another ult down the drain.
And it was rally for primal. That's a very favorable exchange for Delaware. And we see Carter going over to the Rock Muncher themselves, Venture. So, gotta love that. And the Venture is just going to allow Carter to play that much more aggressive. And the Venture could do a great job of deterring Aruda on the Tracer. Especially, I mean, you got Venture and Cassidy. Big Aruda deterrents.
The hard part with the Venture here, there's not many spaces that you can play and get value, such as in the main. But in instances like this, where Pip is getting perma-CC'd, the kicker for playing tank, the rest of the ultimates for Delaware Varsity have been popped as a result. A fight that they are expected to win.
They did pop all of their ults, but because of the late rally in the last fight, not much percentage was gained.
Aruda?
Pulse bomb was used, and the duplicate. So Arcadia put into that fight just as much as Delaware did, and trades are still going back and forth. So if you're Arcadia, you can't afford to get too aggressive.
Aruda just killed both supports completely by himself here. I mean, Arcadia, they're anything but out of this fight right now. Saving Joe, it's a nano boost onto Racer. Both their supports have respawned, but I'm telling you, you're going to want to return to sender with a primaling Winston heading straight at you, going back towards those supports, knocking them around a little bit, doesn't get any kills, but causes enough chaos for Arcadia to slowly start regrouping in Aruda to get yet another elimination, as looks so good on this Tracer. Sends the swap of the side, but it's a sleep dart from Jay that takes Pip out and gives Arcadia, really a less of a reason to push forwards, or rather, just go all in, hope for the best, and make these last couple of meters count. It's now the monarch of stalling in Venture. You really just can't do anything except wait out that burrow, the primaling now from Ideal. I mean, there's plenty of ways that Delaware can whittle down this time bank, but to fully wipe Arcadia from the face of the map is looking highly unlikely, especially with Saving Joe hitting nades just like that. Finlay going down, perhaps there's a chance, but not if you don't touch the payload. Arcadia match with the full cap.
even if they touched the payload, it was really just going to be a time drain at that point. You already have a huge advantage in the time bank, 1 minute to 3 minutes. You put yourself in a great spot if you're Delaware, going into extras with triple the time bank. Question is, when it comes to a map like Watchpoint Gibraltar, and how this series has gone so far, especially on this map, both teams attacked first point with relative ease. So, I mean, if you're Delaware, you got to hope that you can stop them without having to give up first point. So that means you're going to have a little bit more of a successful push. The problem for Arcadia is Delaware's got a massive time bank, and with how quick they finished it last time, there's a good chance they're probably going to get point A. So you have to make sure you secure point A most likely to get this victory.
Arcadia are going to have to roll out with that same sort of oomph that they did when they first attacked on this point, and a lot of that, you gotta shout out Ruda and Pip here for that. I mean, being both on this Tracer and Echo, the answer was really never found. Syrup barely found himself in the kill feed, and Carter just got completely manhandled throughout the entirety of that round. Delaware knows something has to change, and it's gonna be two interesting characters here, a Diva and a Juno.
The Diva, I mean, is always a really good pick. I mean, it's always going to be second to Winston on this map, but Diva also does a great job of applying pressure to Winston and diving those supports. So I like it. And in going to Juno Brig, that is a thing. I think the Juno and the Brig is more necessary for the Diva versus playing the Ana. And the Juno is going to add a little bit more utility and damage to the field.
This isn't a terrible idea, especially since Delaware, there's a minute for Arcadia to push this. All you gotta do is slow down this time bank, slow down the pace of the game, and playing something like a Diva will help that. Also guarantee eliminations. That's your trade. Carter for Pip. Both flex DPS, but Q for Arcadia, that payload is still on the move. Someone from Delaware has to drop down and contest, which I believe was ideal, leaving Syrup on the high ground all by themselves. Racer sees that as an opportunity, but is out of the LOS of both supports. A critical error from Arcadia's tank player, got caught out, underestimated the damage of the Diva, and will now have to rely on an overtime push, a contest from Aruda, just to get any more distance on this payload, because a 3-minute time bank to have to defend against this close would be devastating. Saving Joe very close to a nano boost of their own. Should that come up, Arcadia have a chance, but for now, Ray, it's looking rather grim. Carter especially returning on this Torbjorn. It's even harder for the DPS to get something done, but it's saving Joe, quite literally saving the day for this team, but Racer gets shredded so quickly, even with the nano boost. The tank is down. Ideal is free to do whatever he pleases, tries to beat up the Brig, and doesn't even have to, pushes them off the cart, and that's as far as Arcadia are gonna get.
That fight was over regardless, Tiny. Their win condition for that defense at that point was getting that orbital ray online. They were able to clean it up before then, but that orbital ray was coming down from outer space to wreak havoc, as the orbital ray does. So there was no chance for Arcadia to keep that, even if they touched in time. So Delaware now has their win condition. I mentioned as the preamble coming into these extras that I felt with the 3 minutes that Delaware was going to have, you were likely going to have to secure first point if you're Arcadia. You did not do that. It's still possible to win if you're Arcadia. You're just going to have one crazy of a defense here, and with how fast these teams have pushed point A, it just makes the job that much tougher.
Yeah, this ain't looking good if you're an Arcadia fan. Got to say that right now. Delaware Varsity have been putting on a masterclass of this dive. They know their win conditions, and they know what their plan is, right? From every single point, did manage to get some of that a strong stance that we've known them for so far back on this defense, and we'll have to see how quick they can make Arcadia really work here on this attack, because that was a lightning run through both the first and the second points of Gibraltar.
Delaware having Syrup come out on that Sojourn once again. It worked well for them. Arcadia defensively is going to have Aruda on the Sojourn and Pip on the Genji, so they've swapped roles once again. It worked very well for them on Nepal. Can it once again? And Watchpoint Gibraltar to make this a 2-0.
And Ruta's Sojourn is scary. Just think about how many first picks he was able to get off the rip completely in the neutral. Will be a little bit harder since it can't charge them up as easily just with how players are playing. But Delaware Varsity are doing the very smart thing of just pushing this payload. They're making Arcadia come to them instead, but that's exactly what they're doing. Pip and Aruda just assaulted the back line, and this is where Arcadia has succeeded so far, is they completely ignore what Ideal and Carter are doing and just go for these supports.
The issue is there's still 2 minutes left on the clock, and basically a good fight and a half for Delaware is going to get them across the line, as Carter is going to make a swap over to the Echo, especially I think when they saw the Pip on the Genji. This is kind of what they were thinking. And then Aruda, yes, you're playing the Sojourn, but it's not exactly the greatest counter to deal with aerial attacks.
Not exactly. It just depends on how well you can synergize it, because Echo is all about timing. You need to be throwing your stickies, your primaries, whatever, when your Winston jumps in. Carter and Ideal need to be working on the same wavelength here, and have to do it quickly. Saving Joe has a nano boost at the ready, and it's not looking too hot for the backline of Delaware Varsity. I mean, Arcadia have really impressed on this defense, but not propping the primal there could come back to bite Arcadia.
Arcadia has to completely back out. They cannot afford to hold this high ground without their Winston. I mean, they might try at the initial, but as soon as Warrior is able to get up, Ideal Warrior is able to get up there and apply pressure, they just don't have the staying power. As you see, Aruda already having to back up.
You don't have a choice. You've lost all of that good positioning, and it leaves it once again in the hands of the DPS players. Pip, Aruda have their ultimates online. Pip gotta be able to work some magic here. The sleep dart onto Racer. Will it be enough after both supports Carter has taken into his own life? Pip sending it to the backline, looking for the Soj with the railgun. Too much damage and out of range. It's Syrup putting an end to Arcadia's last hope. They've been flawless so far, Ray, and it's Delaware now to put a blemish on their record. The perfect map streak is gone, and the Delaware Blue Hens are gonna go ahead and tie up our series.
We talked about the pedigree that Delaware came in with. Yes, they had not as good of a record, but they've done well in other leagues, have, looked very good. They have just played kind of a tough schedule. Like, Drexel is no slouch in the Tier 2 division. So the fact that they took an L there is not super surprising. And as we mentioned, Arcadia, yes, they've been dominant, but they haven't faced some of the higher competition in this division. And the Blue Hens are that first test. And I mean, so far it's 1-1, which is great, but this is the first map they've dropped. So this is going to be their first, chance to see how they deal with adversity.
This is the Arcadia that has been put to the test. I mean, we've seen Delaware play before. Literally, we're on broadcast last week. This team is no slouch by any degree, and Arcadia aren't treating them like one. Arcadia are treating this as a very serious match, but there's just certain points in this series where the dive, Delaware seem to have the better understanding of how it works the majority of the time. Outside of saving Joe, getting some insane nades and Pip, finding great value out of just playing the Echo in general, Delaware Varsity looked overall more coordinated in what they were attempting to do. The positioning and rotations that they took were very strong all throughout the course of the map, and it's very clear to see why they wanted to go here in the first place.
So the big question is going to be, as this series develops, Delaware definitely had the strong hand in the dive, and Arcadia had the strong hand in the brawl. Is this going to come down to map pick? Well, we're going to have to find out, as we are going to go to a quick break, but don't go anywhere, as we have an exciting series on our hands, tied 1-1. We'll be right back.
Oh, what an awesome day for a pump, dude.
Yeah, I gotta take it easy. Doc says if I exert myself, I will die.
You overexert yourself, you will die.
I'll tell you what, you finish the workout, all these could be yours. That looks good. A little bit of honey ham for the ham. Get after it, and that's your, nope, get after it, and that's your treat. Stay, do the exercise, do the work, then you get the reward. That's how this works, man. You gotta give it max effort, maximum effort. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Big hams. Make it work, those hams. Work. Putting in the work. Yeah, baby. Yes. This is a spicy workout. Gotta make it worth it. Building the beef and bringing home the bacon, baby. I'm loving it. Teriyaki is just about within your reach. Come on, get you some. Come on. Maximum effort. Maximum effort. You're there. You're almost there.
Oh, so